For him, this is just one example, the term true. So I'm looking for an explication of the term true, not as used, this is my bold, not as used in phrases like true democracy or true friend, but as used in everyday life, in legal proceedings, in logic, and in science, in about the sense of correct, accurate, veridical, not false, and so on. And it is applied to statements, assertions, reports, stories, etc. Good. So what I call here narrow and wide conception of truth. The narrow conception of truth would be what we all more or less mean by truth. It's semantical relationship between statement or sentence, assertion, judgment, belief, and the world. However, wide conception of truth would be conception of truth, the idea that the concept of truth includes things like true democracy, true friend, etc. So that one and the same concept covers all of these cases. And today we will talk about this option. About this option, I think I have something to say about it. Well, okay, so two conceptions of truth. It's Carnap. Okay, so in these foundations of probability, he gives requirements for explicatum. Should be similar, exact, fruitful, simple. Okay. Maybe one interesting thing is the idea that explicatum should be as close to or as similar with the explication as the latest vagueness permit. However, it's easily seen that this requirement would be too strong. And he has the example of fish, and he says that the scientific concept of fish is very far away from the some daily common sense concept of fish. Actually, I do not agree. There is, of course, a difference, but it's not a big difference. Maybe in German there is expression something like Tintenfisch, that would be the ink fish or the squid. So maybe because of that uh, he makes this comment. For instance, in Croatia, especially in Dalmatia, it's not. There is even a saying, a proverb, maybe ugly, chauvinistic. It's against the islanders, against the people who live on islands. It's neither squid is a fish nor islander is a man. And that is an old expression. So they were aware of the difference between squid and fish. Okay. Again, condition one for Carnap, close similarity is not required and considerable differences are permitted. The fish. So, okay, later this will be a relevant question about these two conceptions of truth, whether they are or they are not in accordance with our actual linguistic practice. Actually, better formulation, in my opinion, is in Tarski's text on truth, that the satisfactory definition of truth, the famous statement, it has to be materially adequate and formally correct. These two conditions should meet. Materially adequate, so it aims to catch hold of the actual meaning of an old notion. Okay, this is materially adequate and formally correct, that the formal correctness of the definition. Okay, so these were the classics, and now let's go to something completely different, to completely different tradition, philosophical tradition. This is Journal Praxis or Praxis International, 1965. There are Marxists, Yugoslav Marxists, Croatian Marxists, or Yugoslav, they were Yugoslav by their attitude, by their feeling. So it's one strand in Marxism. The main figure was Gajo Petrovic. He was even my supervisor and my professor. Actually, he was teaching logic and he was a very sharp guy. So he was the spiritus movens behind this praxis movement. Guy who is still active of this praxis philosopher is Lino Veljak. I invited him, but unfortunately, he's busy with other things. He's retired now, and he's active in, he's commenting politics. Actually, if you Google his name, the Google, what would pop out is his article against Orthodox Church in Montenegro. He's criticizing church, social role of church in Montenegro. Okay, so this is Lino Veljak. He's maybe one of the last sincere Marxists here. Okay, and this is a festschrift for Lino. He's caught just by chance from a car, and this picture ended up at the festschrift for him. So what is the title of the festschrift? Is Practical Ontology. So why is this a title? It's not just by chance. The idea is that philosophy is theoretical background for social and political action. So no matter how theoretical your philosophical activity is, it is ultimately practical. And for this reason, since Lino was emphasizing this all the time, he was teaching ontology. But he was politically active. And so for this reason, that is something more or less elaborated position. It is something what they explicitly believe in. Now, there is a book Introduction into Ontology. Okay, so this is the book. This is the book. Okay, it's a collection of several articles. That make one whole, let's say. And now he has an article on truth and what he says about the truth. So the concept of truth is primarily used in the everyday language, where it acquires different meanings. So this is my bold one concept, different meanings. I don't think that he had something technical in mind, but he said that. So the most frequent or the most important meanings of truth in everyday speech are the following. 1, reality state of affairs. 2, coincidence of the thought or judgment with the actuality, cognition that corresponds to the actual state of affairs. 3, firm belief or conviction, ideal principle. 4, justice, truthfulness, authentic way of life, the source of derivatives like istinito, true, or istinsko, genuine, real, used in expressions like the true man, istinski čovjek. So the true democracy, true friend would be just some of the meanings or of the usages of the word true in everyday life. Then after this, he has an analysis of truth as the concept of truth is used in religion, and he argues that actually, especially in religion, the concept of truth is primarily used in some practical sense, meaning, so that truth means primarily practical reliability. So that I am the way, I'm the truth, I'm the life. It means trust me, follow me, and so on. So that it has the practical meaning. So sorry, maybe we can stop here. How does this seem to you? This claim. For instance, in English, it would be good example would be expression true to yourself. I mean, in Croatian, we do have some context in which one can use the word true in this wider sense. But yeah, Maria.
Wouldn't be true to yourself? It seems to me should be an additional 0.5 that's different from 0.4.
Okay.
It's more like being authentic or something.
Yeah,
Okay, you have authentic on point 4,
yeah,
but being truthful is honesty.
yes, yes.
Seems to me one thing. Being authentic, being true to yourself should be I would add this as a different point.
Yeah, yeah. I would as well, but Lino and we will see some other people. No, they think that it is one and the same thing, one and the same concept. True, man. Yeah, actually, I wrote in this fast sheet. I wrote a polemical article against this, and I was defending the narrow conception of truth, that it is the only legitimate conception of truth, that other usages of true, like true man or true democracy, that's secondary, derivative, metaphorical, and so on. But we'll see. Maybe this is worth discussing.
You have there's one thing that occurs to me. You have a precursor. Thomas Aquinas has the same view.
Yeah.
He defines truth as correspondence of judgment, mind, intellect, and thing. And if the intellect is a statement, then it's the thing that makes the statement true.
Yeah.
And if the intellect is God's picture of a friend, then the friend must the picture makes true the thing has to correspond to God's picture of the truth.
Yeah. It's so-called ontological truth. Yeah, we'll have one guy here who is a priest, so he comes from scholastics.
And I think he's very explicit that he wants to say it's one concept that has these two forms.
Yeah. So these guys, they were Marxists. They are coming from different background, different tradition, but they had the same point. Actually, their point was they were on several places, several authors were talking about true existence, true human existence. It's supposed to be existence where we use and develop our creative potentials. That is the true human existence. And they're explicit about it that the truth, the concept of truth, is good for sentences and judgments, just as it is for human life, for human existence. So that's the claim. So the title of my critique was, of course, the true existence. Okay, now we have another guy, Hans Michael Baumgartner. I don't know much about him. He was a German philosopher, and his book Finite Mind is translated here. He's neo-Kantian. Finite Mind, Baumgartner is sort of introduction to philosophy. I don't know, personally, I'm not a big fan of this book, but okay, he's neo-Kantian. Well, so what he says in his book, this Finite Mind, original question about the truth is a question about everything that we can reliably know about ourselves and the world, everything that we rely on. The truth is what is valid, what is reliable, what is valuable. Just because of this, we can equally correctly talk about true friend like about the true statement or true story. So this is his claim. What is valid, what is reliable, what is valuable. Wow. Now we have third guy. Yeah, this guy, he comes from scholastics. This is Božo Milanovic. He was a priest, a local priest in Istra, in Croatia, Peninsula Istra. Actually, he's famous. He's well known for something completely different. After the Second World War, there was a conference in Paris, and the question was whether Istra will go to Italy or to Yugoslavia, that is to Croatia. And there was a dispute. Well, Yugoslav partisans, they took Istra and Trieste, and well, they had momentum. They were heading toward Venice and so on. But Nevertheless, there was a conference, and then Bojan Milanovic, this man, he brought literally tons of church books of birth certificates of people. And then he proved that Istra is ethnically Croatian, well, primarily at least. So and it seems that his argument that is literally tons of books in Paris, it seems that was maybe, well, certainly one of the very important arguments. Nevertheless, after that, he continued his career as a priest, and he was teaching in it would be a theology school or something, and he published the book. It's a small textbook, Ontology. He was philosopher by education, so it is, I think, 1963, Ontology, and actually he has this scholastic St. Thomas, scholastic philosophy, Aristotelian. He talks about substance, 4 kinds of causes, and so on. So he wrote this, and what he says, Bojan Milanovic, actually he has the same family name as our president, but they are not related. They are from different parts. So what Bojan Milanovic says in his textbook Ontology for students of theology, we distinguish 3 kinds of truth. Logical, which is, I would say, congruence. I'm not happy with this translation. Sklad, it means that something fits together, but okay. The closest would be congruence. Between reason and things, moral, which is congruence between words and thoughts, and ontological, which is congruence between thing and its idea, especially in God's mind. Well, so he takes that directly from St. Aquinas, as Marianne noticed. So what we have here, so it seems that we have different people from different backgrounds who have this wide conception of truth, that we have Marxists, German idealists, neo-Kantians, and we have Christian or Catholic philosophers. So I'll see here when he talks about moral truth, well, I would say that it's just sincerity. Sincerity would be the right word. Moral truth, congruence between words and thoughts. That somebody is sincere, that somebody says what he or she thinks. Okay. Yeah, now in scholastics, they had this distinction between semantical truth and ontological truth. Correspondence between statement and state of affairs, that will be semantical, and ontological is correspondence between thing and its concept. The interesting thing is, it seems that the order or correspondence, if that is good expression, good thought, the order of correspondence, is reversed. In semantical truth, statements should correspond to the facts, while in the ontological truth, things should correspond to their concepts. So it seems that this order of, I don't know, correspondence or order of dependence goes in different directions. So the true table is table that corresponds to the concept of table. Okay, that would be ontological truth. Well, after all, Carnap himself and logical positivism in general, and all other authors, I guess all of us, we have 2 kinds of truth, formal truths and factual truths. So that would be logical truths due to the meanings of words, or maybe due to the rules of logic, but we have the idea that there is a difference between formal truths or logical truths and on the one hand, and factual truths on the other hand. Okay. Are there any comments before we proceed to the next part? Okay. Now there are etymologies. So I did take a look at etymologies. Etymologies, I think that Quine said that he was always fascinated with etymologies and geographical maps. Okay, I like etymologies. I don't know how much do they prove, but they show how the concepts and meanings were developed. So they are certainly interesting. I don't know whether the etymologies by themselves do not prove anything, but they're interesting. So in Croatian language and in Slavic languages in general, yeah, there is a bunch of words. Isto. Isto means the same. Then istina means the truth. Istinito is true. Now istinsko is genuine or real. Istovjetno is identical. Got it. Maybe here, istinito and istinsko, for those who are not native speakers, it sounds the same, but there is a big difference, key difference. Average speaker, competent speaker of Croatian language makes distinction between this istinito and istinsko. So istinito is just semantic relation of truth in narrow sense. But istinsko is just different ending. It means genuine or real. So the average speaker of Croatian language would make this distinction here when we have things like true democracy or true friend. Good speaker, not specially good, any average speaker of Croatian language would say that true democracy and true friend would use istinska demokracija, istinski prijatelj. So they would make a difference. And in my opinion, there are different concepts. Also, although they are etymologically very close, they express different concepts. One is semantically true, another one is genuine or real. So the interesting thing is, so I see Ksenia is here. I think that,
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry. I just wanted to get to this before you make the comment.
Yeah.
Istina is actually an archaic word for truth. For truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's an archaic use. It's work. It's not in the same use at this point. So you are correct in that comment at this time, but in some older texts, it would mean true.
Because Ksenia is native speaker of Russian. So, well, in Russian pravda is truth, in Croatian pravda is justice, and so on. So, well, these etymologies of Slavic languages, they can be funny. They can be funny. For instance, there is a word. I mean, it's good illustration. There is a word maslo. Can you see this? No. Am I sharing the screen?
No, you're not.
No, I'm not. Sorry. Well, it's not very philosophical point, but it's funny. Do you see it now? The butter.
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah. So Maslow means butter. In Western Slavic languages, in Croatian, Slovenian, Czech, Polish, this is, I think, Polish. Maslo means butter. Though in Croatian, strictly speaking, there are some further differences, but okay. However, in Russian, maslo means oil. So what do you get? That in Russian cars, you have here maslo. It's the level of oil in the engine. So for us, that was very, very funny. That suppose that you have a car and it's written butter. Well, so okay, the anecdote, Elvio Baccarini had a Russian Lada, and we were always laughing at that. So the same is these histories, etymological histories of truth and justice and so on. Okay, are we back to this etymology slide again? Okay, in Italian, we have also the similar thing. Verità is true, truth, then vero, then vero is true, davvero e da vero. So it's truth, true, really, actually, real, genuine. So they have expression also, the vero uomo, the true man. They also have that expression in Italian language. Well, and the meaning is real man. Now we are coming to the crossroad. Let's say, in principle, there are options that we have. In principle, well, I'm taking Veljak as example. So one, Carnap is right, Veljak is wrong. That would be narrow conception. So the truth applies only to sentences, propositions, beliefs, etc., and we should ignore any other usage as secondary, metaphorical, imprecise, simply wrong, and so on. So this would be the narrow conception. The wide conception will be that Veljak is right and Carnap is wrong. Truth applies to other things as well, human life, ideals, art, patriotism, or blah, 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 whatever. However, there is a third option, that it's not a matter of being right or wrong. It's a matter of practical decision, a matter of stipulation. How are we going? Now we are deciding how we are going to use the word, in which meaning. So, and one might argue that there is more than one way to explicate the concept of truth. Now, the question is which explication is better for purposes that we have. So Tarski and Praxis philosophers, they had different motives. Tarski wanted to solve the liar paradox, while Praxis philosophers, they wanted social changes and political engagement. So different motives, different tasks, different...
Isn't the point that Tarski succeeded in his task, whereas the Praxis philosophers failed in their task?
That is a good question. We might argue like that. In the rest of paper, I'm trying to defend as much as I can their Praxis position. That they do have not, it's not well formally correct, not that far, but that they are, as we will see, they are squeezing some consequences of wide conception. So that, but yes, we can claim that. Though different things would be criteria, but one might say that. Yeah, we will come back to that. Yeah. Marian.
Is the Carnap option really committed to what you have there? Wouldn't Carnap rather say there are two genuinely different concepts there? There's the truth, the concept that we call truth applied to sentences, propositions, and a different concept that we also call truth or true applied to friends and gold and so on. And these are two different concepts, and there's not a mistake or imprecision. They're genuinely two different concepts, and they're just sort of the terms are historically connected.
One might claim that. That was my claim, that we have different concepts and different properties. That was my claim. Yeah.
But Carnap, I think, is not committed to what you have there, right? He could make your claim.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
We can ignore or even eliminate these usages, but we can, as you said and I did, say that they're just different concepts.
Yeah.
And well, for some historical linguistic reasons, we don't have different words. We use the same word, but concepts are different, properties are different. Well, that's it. And we understand from the context whether we are talking about semantical conception or some other. Well, that would be one nice answer, I would say. Now, well, let me legitimize myself. On the one hand, I am CAP, contemporary analytic philosopher. And here, partly I'm serving as a devil's advocate. I'm defending a view that I don't believe in. But on the other hand, I am partly sincerely curious about the option 3, about the prospects of the wide conception. So does that conception has any prospects? Does it have any chances? And it seems to me that it does have some prospects and some chances, though not very much. But now, I would say that people now is wide conception material adequate and formally correct. It seems I would say that wide conception is to a certain extent materially adequate. That in the sense that, as a matter of fact, people sometimes use predicate true or truth not only for statements but for other things as well. As we have just said, many of these cases can be explained away as cases of just different concepts, but just the same word. That from the context we can understand that they're talking about different things. Well, further, wide conception is not formally elaborated, but it has some interesting implications. And as we will see, it can be used even to delineate truth from non-truth. It gives us, we will see now, it gives us some weird and strange criteria, but it gives us some criteria. Now, okay, now I'll talk about the implications. Implications of the openness. Well, what Veljak says about these, well, he talks about openness. It's this Heideggerian etymological analysis of truth. Aletheia, it means openness, so that, so what Veljak says, that what Delphic oracle says, even if it does correspond to facts, it's not true and cannot be true. Why not? Well, because it's not open. Or in other words, I would translate it as a contemporary analytic philosopher would say, that the statements or utterances of Delphic oracle, they just lack justification. We don't know why she says what she says. Neither she knows. She is in kind of special state of mind. She's just something else talks through her, so she does not know. So, well, it seems that he would disqualify these Delphic oracle predictions or statements. He says that it cannot be true. They're not true. Why? We don't know how and why she claims what she claims. Or in other words, they lack justification. However, justification is property of knowledge, not of truth. But in his understanding, it is and should be the property of truth. So if true sentence, if it is depraved of reasons and evidence, it's not true, even if it corresponds to facts. So this would be one implication of this wider concept. In my opinion, this is not essentially the implication of this view, but it forms maybe natural package. Okay. Now, second implication, elimination of dogmatism. Well, this praxis people.
I'm sorry, Boran.
Yeah.
Go back maybe that
okay,
to that
yeah.
slide. Well, I just maybe maybe what do you think whether a better term would be transparency?
Can be.
Okay, because so could you maybe elaborate a bit on what this openness?
We can openness. Well, yeah. Oh, bit good.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know these who work in Heidegger, how they translate their Erschlossenheit. I think just it's openness, I guess.
Okay.
I mean, mightn't if the Delphic oracle has a good enough track record, we might be justified in believing whatever she says.
Yeah.
So that it's not. I mean, maybe she still lacks justification because she's not even thinking about, she's just acting as a mouthpiece. But we might have justification on an inductive basis.
Mm-hmm. The Delphic oracle is just reliable, say, I don't know, 100% of times or 95% of times. Therefore, that is knowledge. It's no matter what we know nothing about the process or mechanism, but we know that it is reliable and we have good reason to believe it. Well, Veljak would reject that. No. He says no.
Does he say why no?
Because it's not open. He does not have very detailed analysis, but because it's not opened, and there must be some, we have to understand why and how, and so otherwise it's not truth.
That would probably apply to absolutely everything, because when what's going on in our brain is not transparent to us. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems some strange kind of very strong internalism. If we don't have access to the process or to the justification, then it's not knowledge, it's not truth, over. It seems like that, yeah. Yeah, this is questionable, definitely questionable statement, but, well, so that it's not true. I don't know, my linguistic intuitions not go to that direction, but that's what he claims. Now, yeah, here we have also, it seems, maybe like conflation between truth and knowledge. So, he claims the following: dogmatic beliefs, even if they correspond to the facts, are not true and cannot be true, because they are petrified and would remain the same even if facts were different. So things like Communist Party, Catholic Church, or something, some ideology or something. So the context was the primary enemy of this praxis people were Soviet Marxists, because there was split between Soviet Union and Yugoslavia, and then they were criticizing Soviet Marxists as dogmatic Marxists, and our guys, they were creative Marxists. So the dogmatism and somebody who is dogmatic, that was the arch enemy of these praxis people. Okay, actually this is a sensitivity condition. So again, we have knowledge instead of truth, so that one knows that P only if one would not believe that P, if P was or were false. So it's interesting thought that guy who is dogmatic, his beliefs, even if they correspond to reality, cannot be true. So it's not true what he believes, even if it corresponds to reality. This is maybe interesting thought. Well, first thought of somebody who is more or less trained in contemporary analytic philosophies. Come on, this is sensitivity condition. We are talking about knowledge instead of truth. However, well, these praxis philosophers, they had these insights somewhere in 1950s, so they were older, let's say, in this respect. So again, I don't know. Well, my linguistic intuitions do not agree with this, but it is some kind of claim. The elimination of dogmatism. Why? Because it's petrified. If it is petrified, it's not sensitive. It's not sensitive. It's not true. So it seems again that some sort of process or flexibility has to be included in the truth. Yeah, Marian.
It seems to me, I mean, this, if you think of it in terms of openness, it's not so much, I think, knowledge. It's being open to criticism, being open to the way the world really is, as opposed to your dogmatic, petrified, written in stone beliefs. I would not so much associate it with knowledge, more this a kind of, yeah, open. We say this to people, right? This is a person, she's very open. She tells the truth about herself. She's flexible. When things change, she'll change, and so on. Something like that is intended. And it seems very closely connected to the idea that truth is somehow a positive value, that there's something evaluatively positive going on.
When Veljak writes about this openness, he has in mind, as I said, this Heideggerian etymological analysis of truth, Greek aletheia. It seems that etymologically means openness.
Actually, I think it's,
I don't know.
Heidegger says it's even more specific. It's uncovered. It's not open just in the general sense, but open in the sense of something that was covered by something is now uncovered.
Discovered.
Yeah.
Yeah. So although what you said is, I think, even, I would say, what you have just said is even better interpretation, that somebody has to be open person in a sense of intellectually open to new information or new use. So
And criticism.
and open to criticism. Yeah, right. Open in that sense. That would paint a better picture, I would say. Yeah, what you said. Now, do we have any more comments about this elimination of dogma?
Yeah, I mean, it might be that the same set of words and the same proposition have a different implication depending on the context in which they're uttered, or something about the tone, or something we know about the person who's saying them. So I might say, look, children do not make art.
Children do not
make art, right? I could suppose I say that, right? So, like, I could mean something like, there's something conceptually true about art and children, such that there's just no way children can make art. Or I could just be describing, as a matter of fact, children do not make art, leaving open the possibility, right? These are two kinds of ways of interpreting that sentence. If you know that I'm a dogmatist on this point about whether children can make art, then this universalistic claim, children do not make art, is the one that I'm saying, and that's would be false, right? Whereas the mere observational point about the children I've seen up to this point, that could be true. Right? So whether the statement is interpreted as kind of universalistic dogmatic claim, or the same words are interpreted as a kind of mere summary of one's observations up to a point, merely that, could make a difference not to the justification, but to whether they're in fact true.
Sorry, I'm not sure that I did catch your point. So you're a dogmatic person. For some reason, you don't like kids or something. And you claim kids don't do art. Kids are drawing or something, little children, they can make something, but it's not art. They don't have skill, they don't have knowledge. So what kids do is not art. It cannot be art.
Right. Yeah. So I could be making that as some kind of dogmatic claim about what kids are always like, and something about the concept of art. Right. I could be making it like that, or I could say the exact same words and have it just be like something that means I haven't seen any kid make good art. Okay.
So something necessarily true and something contingently true.
Exactly, right? But the same words could represent either of these statements. Said dogmatically, they might impute some kind of universalistic necessary claim. Said in the second way, it might just be some observation. And clearly, since even though they're the same words, there's two meanings to these sentences. One's true, one's false, depending on whether it's said dogmatically. So that's one possible defense of this idea that dogmatism speaks the truth, not just the justification.
You mean to apply this to the oracle doesn't speak the truth? That is your analogy. He might say the oracle doesn't speak the truth in the sense in which the dogmatist says kids don't make art, or he might just say the oracle speaks the truth as an empirical claim.
Yeah, so Justin, sorry, so your point is that if two different guys say the same sentence in the same meaning, still one can be true and another false, according to this.
The meaning's different. It seems to me.
Meanings are different.
Yeah. Depending on the context.
I think that for this, to find a relevant example for this claim would be where they utter the same sentence in the same meaning, but one guy is dogmatic, another one is not, he's flexible. So what other guy says is true and what the first guy says is false. We should, or
okay.
No, but
I was just trying to make sense of this. How might one come to think that dogmatic beliefs, even if they correspond to the facts, are not true or cannot be true.
That is I'm sorry, May, because that was precisely what I wanted to ask. How do we discriminate dogmatic beliefs as dogmatic beliefs if they do in fact correspond to reality?
They don't have this sensitivity. So if things were different, this guy would still believe the same. Say that kids are doing marvelous pieces of art, our guy would still claim, no, kids don't do art. It's not art by definition because it's done by kids. I don't know, say that you hate or despise some ethnic group. So I say, whatever he says, it's false. And as a matter of fact, it is false. But even when it's true, you would still say the same thing. So
no, I understand, but what if, for example, we have a new religion that bases its beliefs on mathematical truths, and how do we, based on what do we say that their beliefs are dogmatic ones when
they don't have sensitivity to the.
But they don't have to, because they are mathematical truths.
They have to. So if you presented them some proof that something is false somewhere, they would not accept it. If that is the case, then their beliefs are not true, even if they correspond to, say, mathematical reality or whatever. So this would be the idea. So they would apply the same criterion to mathematical knowledge as well. Yeah, there is one more. Where is this? There's one more. There is a general slogan. I have it somewhere later. Was of Boran Berčić. It sounds incredible prima facie, but in this context we will understand it. Only true men can have true beliefs. True man is one who is authentic, who is not dogmatic, who creates, who develops his creative potential, and so on. So only such a person can have true beliefs. Only true man can have true beliefs. So the guy who is, let's say, fucked up for some ideology or propaganda or whatever reason, he cannot have true beliefs, even if all of his beliefs correspond to reality. That would be the conclusion. So it's a slogan. Only true men can have true beliefs. Yeah. So do we have more about this elimination of dogmatism or sensitivity condition? I'm sorry, Justin, I'm not sure that I did get your point right with one who hates kids or. Okay, Marian was.
There's this, it seems maybe worthy of consideration. There's this tendency to use the positivity of the notion of truth, and then emphasize that very strongly. And then this word tends to suck up all the good things, then end up being called true, because true is sort of a very exemplary notion of goodness.
Yeah.
And then you call somebody honest, you say it's a good person, he's a real man. So you say a real man says true things, just meaning he's a good person. So the true becomes a kind of just a positive evaluator, and has nothing much still to do with the Kanapian sense of truth.
Yeah.
Similar phenomenon you also have in pragmatism, right? Sometimes in William James and so on. Sometimes it sounds like he's taking the goodness and associating the word true really with the goodness that we somehow.
That's my thought as well, that things like truth, justice, knowledge, they are very good terms. Positively, very strongly value loaded.
And so it has to be the true religion.
Yeah.
Religion has to be the true religion, because that's a very positive word.
Yeah. So they mixed semantically, well, elements from knowledge, from approval, appraisal. So it's certainly to say that something is true is to say that something is good. So because truth definitely has this value component. So actually, if you're calling other things true, maybe you're just using the value component. True man, true railroad, or whatever. Well, it just means that it's good. So you're using that was my one of my thoughts as well, of course, and especially also there can be a jam in meanings between truth, justice, knowledge, or these beautiful and nice things. Like we can have some conceptual jam, semantical jam in, say, meaningful life, good life, happy life, life worth living. So we have some related concepts, some nexus of concepts. So maybe they're actually their view can be the consequence of the fact that the same thing is with the true just knowledge and so on, so that we have a nexus of concepts, plus we have they are very strongly value loaded, and they are used in evaluative sense, and so that can be the diagnosis of what we have here. Okay. 55. Yeah, only true men can have true beliefs. I have one analogy maybe to support this, that there is a saying that broken watch shows right time twice a day. Say no, it does not show anything because it's broken. So somebody who is victim of ideology or propaganda, something cannot have true beliefs over, just in a sense in which broken watch cannot show right time because it cannot show anything. So will be maybe some kind of analogy in support of this claim. Generally, we have some sort of reliabilism again, that only if guy is reliable, his beliefs can be knowledge, but they can be true. They can be true just by chance. Well, they don't want, praxis people, they don't want true by chance. No, if it is by chance, then it's not true. Again, that is characteristics of knowledge, not of truth. Yeah, Boris.
Does this hold also for someone expressing something, for example, a totalitarian government, and some representative says something which corresponds to reality? So is it true? If, for example, all the other statements do not correspond, but one corresponds, or the intention of the government is to lie to the people, the general intention, but sometimes they say something which corresponds to reality. So can we apply the same criterion also to dispensers of statements, not only to consumers of statements?
I'm not sure I got the point rightly. If it is, let's say, it's some kind of, I don't know, totalitarian fascist regime, some tequila guerrilla movement somewhere, and if they're strongly influenced by some ideology, they are repeating themselves like parrots or like broken records. So if it happens, even if it happens to correspond to reality, our guys would say, no, it's not true. It's not true. It's false. Why? Because it's with these guys, they say fascist regime of generalissimus, whoever, they are not kind of guys who can have true beliefs. Over.
Okay, so
And
let me
qualify them in that way.
So when Hitler accused Western allies for imperialism, and the the same accusation was put forward by leftists, for example, in Britain and the United States. So both the leftists in the West and Hitler were stating something about the nature of Britain or British or American politics. So we can say that Hitler was not speaking the truth, and
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
well,
He's just uttering a sentence, but it's not true. They would say that. Yeah, that's the consequence. Yeah.
well, it seems problematic to me, but okay.
Certainly.
Yes, it is very problematic because in every speech, in every text, there could be analytical judgments, for example, which are just by definition true. And how can we call them false? It's just logically impossible.
If guys dogmatic, no. Well, maybe they would say that he's not uttering a sentence at all, that he's just making voices, or maybe they will go that direction. I don't know.
This is going to make teachers' lives very difficult, because when they're marking an exam, it won't be enough to see whether the students have written the right answer. They'll have to test the students to find out whether they're dogmatic about it or not. So
you have to know a man to see whether he's a real man, a true man, or something. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right.
Maybe in analogy to ethics, you could make it more like the distinction between, do we evaluate the action or the person? What's going on here, it seems to me, it's important to them that they want to say, this person doesn't speak the truth. This person doesn't have true beliefs. And they might say, even if the sentences they utter are in fact true, the person doesn't speak the truth. To make this distinction, that's important, that the truth predicate somehow does not apply to this not open dogmatic person, even if the sentences she utters may be true.
I think that's one possibility. Another possibility could just be that the true sentence is uttered in the service of a greater falsity or to advance some false claim.
Inherit the falsehood of the person, as it were.
Yeah, inherit. So sorry, Justin, can you say it again?
Oh, so my point was a bit different, was that one might say something true in the service of advancing a falsehood. So that's just another way of being able to capture, I guess, maybe the sentiment behind only a true man can have true beliefs, without committing ourselves to the idea that what they're saying is not literally true because they're not a true man or they're a dogmatist, but rather they're saying it in service of a greater falsehood. So taken in the context in which it's uttered, again, it promotes a falsehood, right? So that's how someone might say. I'm not defending the position. I'm just trying to say, hey, you can capture what they're trying to get at without committing a certain kind of mistake.
Yeah, say that you have some propaganda radio station and that every 10th information that they give is true, actually, or that they're giving 9 true information and every 10th is ideology's lie. In a sense, that can disqualify the whole radio station. Well, so I'm not listening to them. Maybe because their overall intention is bad, is to deceive you or something. Yeah, Božić.
Well, is it practically possible to be dogmatic about everything? For example, someone can obviously be dogmatic about a certain set of beliefs, but also, for example, Nazis certainly held true beliefs about the functioning of engines and so on, because they had engines which worked. So can we separate like these two sets of beliefs?
Yeah, I'm sorry that Lino is not here with us. I mean, he will say, I think they will say, no, their engineering skills of Nazis just well, happen to work, but they are not true. They correspond to reality. They correspond to reality,
Yeah.
but they're not true because they were bad guys. They would say that. So for technological success, it's sufficient that you have correspondence with reality. You don't need truth.
Okay, but is it possible for anyone in a practical sense to be dogmatic about everything? It seems to me that it is not possible.
Yeah, it will be sort of a robot or without conscience or something. I don't know. It's a good question whether this is matter of degree.
Yeah.
They present it as if it is either or question, but certainly we are all influenced by different sorts of ideologies, propagandas, or commercials, whatever, education. So if you take this as a matter of degree, well, it's much more plausible, but then it's much less interesting. Well,
this has actually real application. Remember, some people have a great difficulty with accepting that Hitler thought that smoking is bad and that you shouldn't smoke. And also, I think he was against alcohol. He also didn't like alcohol, right? And
maybe.
some people find it, some people just, for them, it's impossible to hear that Hitler said smoking is bad because everything Hitler said is false, right?
Yeah, and then people were smoking as a protest against Nazism.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember in Graz, there was a guy who was working on medieval philosophy, and he did not smoke. But when smoke was banned, he was getting out of his office every day at noon and lighting one cigarette. As a protest, was he Berger, I think, Berger. In Zagreb, next to courtroom, there is a small coffee bar. And the coffee bar is called At the False Witness. That's the name of the bar. So say that you have a guy, I don't know, he's police informer, rat, alcoholic, something, and he testifies whatever you pay him. So he's an unreliable witness. So in a sense, even if he utters something that corresponds to reality, you would reject him. Well, that's maybe it's close to this, but I don't know. Okay, sorry, Ksenia.
Yes, I was just I wanted to say that there was an attempt by Gottlob Frege to remove truth from fiction, not because of ideology, but because in his posthumous writings in Logic, he claims that nothing that is a part of a work of art can be called true or false. So basically, all of sentences in poetry or in literature are just fictions. They lack truth value. And then we discussed, it, and he actually wrote a lot about art in his posthumous writings in Logic, and we discussed that just recently, yesterday. And well, this brings about the same effects like what Professor Berčić just mentioned, because then everything that is a mathematical statement becomes fictitious, and every analytical judgment becomes fictitious, and just by simply being a part of a work of art.
So that there is overall intention that changes the status of sentences.
Well, I don't. We found many inconsistencies in that particular piece in Logic when we tried to really analyze whether he was really serious, really like literally serious about this. I don't think he gave it too much of a thought. I think he had in mind maybe poetry and maybe some plays, some theater pieces that he maybe saw, and his judgment was that actors on the stage only pretend to be, so we cannot say that they are speaking truth or false.
Yeah.
He also had some interesting thoughts about assertions or indicative sentences in poetry, and not having this judgment part, and this judgment part being left to the
Thought when I was a student, studied so literature. There is a say what Tolstoy said about Kutuzov, and say that many of these sentences were literally true. His description of how Kutuzov was sleeping 23 hours a day, he was tired, blah, blah, blah. Assumed that probably many of these sentences were true, but since this is a work of fiction, since this is a novel, none of them is true. That would be the idea. That okay.
Yes.
Let's go to the art. Actually, who? No. Maybe the hope is that the wider concept of truth can do justice to truth in art. Say, is there any truth in works of Dostoevsky or Hemingway or Shakespeare? So it seems that they did convey some important truths about human condition, human nature, and so on. That in a sense, there is a truth in their works. However, what is the problem in contemporary aesthetics? So Iris is not here. She's teaching aesthetics here. Well, since literature is essentially fiction, literature is simply false, literally false. Therefore, it cannot have any cognitive content and so on. So it cannot convey any truth. So how come that we have the impression that it does have some value? So maybe with this wider conception, we can do justice to truth in art. Well, actually, one who kind of triggered me, Sergei. He's a student, doctoral student. He's film director, and he wrote PhD in philosophy. He kind of triggered me partly for this talk. He understands everything. He understands arguments, position. He's a good student. He has talent for philosophy, but he insists that in film there is truth. In my opinion, he wants to use concept in the evaluative sense that something is good, something is important. So then he's using word truth. But I was trying to explain this to him for 2 years. He's not giving up. So let me.
I'm not giving up for a third year now. I'm I'm much longer there, and I'm still not giving up. I'm a musician.
Sharing. Oh, nice. Well, for instance, do you see this on the screen? Well, for instance, is
Oui, un peu.
Jean-Luc Godard's.
La photographie, c'est la vérité. Et le cinéma, c'est 24 fois la vérité par seconde.
So photography is truth, and cinema is truth 24 times a second. Well, this Jean-Luc Godard, okay, it's very nice quotation. Or we have there's a book about photojournalism. And there's a visual truth. So the truth. They're using the word truth, and it seems that they're appropriately using word truth. For instance, I don't know if we are receiving pictures from Gaza Strip today or from Ukraine. Well, they convey some truth. They are true or false. Sorry, and there is another element. I don't know whether we should waste time. For instance, there's a documentary film my father did, Devalvacija jednog osmijeha, and there we have a very touchy moment when a guy describes how. Sorry, do you see the slides now? No. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay, there is devalvacija jednog osmijeha. It's a very touching moment where an alcoholic, old man, sick, drunken, he describes how his brothers were killed in the Second World War. Says his youngest brother was killed jumping on German bunkers, blah, blah, and then he starts crying at that moment. So it's in that film, it's some emotional peak of the film. And it really touches every viewer. Well, and then Sergei was saying, you see, this is the truth. This is the truth. I don't know what to do with him, but there are people who use word truth in that sense for maybe for literature, for films, for I don't know what, for different things. Now, if
Can I jump in on that?
okay, go, Justin.
Okay, so my general take on the question you're taking up in this paper is kind of like the following. If we ask what kinds of things is true a property of, or possibly a property of, it seems like the answer is going to be representations. And representations come in many forms. Truth seems to be the kind of thing that paradigmatically has to do with propositions. And that's because propositions are kind of our paradigmatic representations. But other things are representations too. And it seems that as representations, these other things can be true or false. Of course, the question then becomes for something like art, what is being represented? Such that we can say of that representation, it's true or false. I don't think for most art, what's being represented is some literal depiction or literal transcription of the text. So if someone says, describes this a love scene in a novel, right? What's the truth of that scene or conversation? What's the truth of that? It's not that it really happened, right? If there's a truth to that, it's some idea that's being conveyed or some experience that's being generalized about, right? And as a representation of that, it seems quite clear that it could be true or false.
Yeah.
So if we think of true or false, so this in a way it's a different way of approaching narrow or wide. It just says what can true apply to? It true applies to representations. All sorts of things can be representations. And the tricky part is figuring out what the representations are.
Yeah, well, human existence. Well, that's a good question. I have one puzzle. What would you say? Are geographical maps true or false? Would we, in a normal language, apply word predicate true to geographical maps?
I think so, because I think, as a rough pass, what we mean by true is just doesn't contain a mistake, right? So they could be true or false insofar as that.
Yeah. For instance, is this true? Well,
yes, but what's this representing? This map does not intend to represent, right? That's the question. Again, the question is, what is this map representing? And how do we figure that out? Of course, it's going to have something possibly to do with attention.
London Underground. So this is how London Underground looks in reality. It's not so abstract, and this is how it looks on the map.
Yes, both of those are true.
Personally, I would say that this abstract map abstraction is more true than the more concrete map.
I don't know.
Generally,
well, it's in English. It's very unnatural to speak of maps as true or false, but it's extremely natural to speak of them as accurate or inaccurate.
Yes, accurate, yeah.
And accurate versus inaccurate is clearly closely related to true versus false.
Yes.
Same in German. You can't call a map true in German.
Yeah, maybe say that you have a map of where did the pirates dig their treasure, and then you go there and dig it out. Oh, well, really, gold coins. It was true. Maybe, but generally speaking, well, in Croatian, accurate and non-accurate would be točna, netočna. True or false, not we would not use it. Although this is paradigmatic case of representation, but we are not using word true. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think what we'd say is, what is this map representing? Is it intended to, is it representing where the tracks actually are and where they go and all their authority and detail? No, that's not what this thing is about. What this is representing is the order of stops and the general direction in which they go, something like that.
The abstract one represents the order. Personally, I'm inclined to say that it's true. So, well, this one is more realistic,
more accurate,
closer to the actual truth, but neither one we would use, for neither of these maps, we would not use word true or false. Well,
I agree with Tim and you. It'd be awkward to call a map true in English, but we'd say it's accurate, by which we sort of mean true.
Precise or
actually, I think it's more complicated, right? Let's say you and I have a map. I could say you have the true map. I don't have the true map, so let's follow you. And there, true means the real map. You have the real map of London, so it's better to follow you. We will find the treasure, right? I have the unreal map of London. That's the sense where the word map can already imply, map of London can already imply it's a correct map. Sometimes, right, when we say this is a map of London, we imply it's a correct map of London. And then when we say this is the true map, you have the true map, I don't, that just means you have the real map. So in that sense, the word true is applicable to maps, but in the sense of real, it's a real map.
Yeah.
Right, but not in the sense of accurate. That would be strange to use true in the sense of accurate for a map, but you can use it in the sense of it's the real map, not the fake map.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, Iris.
Yeah, hi everyone. I have just a couple of comments regarding your, if you can go back to the slides about art. So many of the notions or many of the understanding of truth that you elaborated on throughout the lecture today have actually been successfully applied to numerous works of art in numerous ways in which people try to defend the cognitive or epistemic value of art. So you can talk about true propositions within a let's say literary work, most commonly with respect to realistical novels, where you can definitely see the truthfulness of particular descriptions with respect to places, with respect to people, with respect to classes, with respect to many, many different things. But what most people who want to defend the cognitive value of literature and movies will tell you is that, to go back to what you were saying at the very beginning, there is something to the idea that they are true to human experience, that they are true to life, that they are true to emotional aspects of one or the other things.
It's true to human experience. Is this narrow concept or wide?
Sorry, is this?
Narrow concept of truth or wide concept of truth? True.
We would say that it is wide. Most people would accept some kind of a pluralistic view as defended, for example, perhaps even by Marian David here, but definitely by Jonathan Kwangwing. So authenticity, authentic to something and true to something. So that's on a very general level. But then it really makes no sense to be talking in these very broad terms, right? So there are different ways in which different works will be truthful or can be accessed through their epistemic value. And part of the reason why we have different genres and why we have different conventions is because we recognized how this particular genre or convention, what is the relation of that genre towards the truth itself. That's why we can differentiate between realistic novel, science fiction novel, historical novel, and why we can differentiate, for example, sociological novel from psychological or even philosophical novel. So the interesting question then would be, what do you do with the notion of truth with respect to philosophy and with respect to philosophical theories? And then to go back to what Ksenia was saying a few moments ago, and about the true propositions when they are inserted within a literary work of art. The dominant view nowadays seems to be that the idea is that when you write a work of art, when you write a literary work, as an author, your intention is to kind of invite your audience to make believe something, as opposed to what you do when you write, let's say, a scientific paper where you kind of invite them to take your word for it and to trust you, because the idea is you are presenting the truth. But that doesn't mean that the sentences or the propositions that you find in a work of art are actually false. And particularly with respect to poetry, so much of our poetry is actually first-person lyrical subjective poetry, whereby poets actually describe their own experience. So you can approach this as a form of testimony, or you can approach this as a form of realistic, in the sense of real, truthful experience or description of a particular kind of experience. And the reason why we can relate to art is precisely because we recognize this kind of truth that is contained in it. Because it doesn't take you long to recognize when a certain film or a certain movie or a certain theatrical play goes too far from how things actually are. And then you can appreciate it for some of its other, let's say, aspects, but you are very aware that this is not how things are in reality. That's why you search for entertainment rather than artistic experience when you are very tired or when you are emotional or something. So I think that just much more care is needed if you are going to discuss the relationship between truth and art than to just say that everything in art is false, or that the truth as such doesn't apply in the conversation.
Look, this is one option, and maybe the hope is that if we approach to the art with a narrow conception of truth, this is the result. Oh, it's all false, therefore you cannot have any cognitive value.
But actually, it's not many things are not false.
No? Sorry?
It's not false that people die when they are hit with the train, or if you shot them.
Precisely, they are analytical truths. They are analytical truths. If you get hit by a train, you die.
That's not analytic.
Yeah, that's not analytic.
So, okay, but it could be reformulated to become an analytical truth.
Okay, but it's well, okay. It seems that the word of Anna Karenina is something more than if you are hit with the train, you will die.
But that's the separate question, whether you are evaluating the truth value of individual sentences, or if you are evaluating the kind of vision, or what Peter Lamarck would say, aboutness, or the mimetic level of the work. So that's the problem.
Then we are departing from the narrow conception of truth. Then we are departing. So what is relevant here is that maybe this wider conception could help us to do just to talk about truth. What is it? True to emotions, or true to perspective, or true to the well, whatever experience of life. Yeah. Sorry, there were more questions, Mattia. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This can be one way to approach it, to say that there is a truth, usual, normal, everyday truth, and that there is truth in the work of art, and it's a different thing. So true within a novel or something, true, fictional, true. Well, I wouldn't go into that here. Yeah, sorry, Ksenia. Please, if you can be short.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't understand why I don't. I will talk later. Just skip me.
Okay, good. Now let's go to the critique of this wide conception, true statement and true democracy. Well, this is my basic reaction is this, that it's just an equivocation, true statement and true democracy. True has different meanings here. So we have one word with two different meanings. One word expresses different concepts and stands for different properties. Other uses of truth are at best secondary, derivative, metaphorical, and so on.
Sorry, Boran, can you go back to your slides, or do you want us to look at them?
Sorry. So you do not see my slide now, right?
May I now just comment the one that I wanted? I'm sorry, my laptop was going to die and it was plugged in, so I didn't understand what the problem was.
Sorry,
To comment on what Professor Vidmar Jovanovic said, that when author undertakes the challenge to write a novel, he doesn't commit to truth in the way in which scientist does commit to truth. And that is certain. And he invites us to see his point of view. And this is also a challenge for artists to overcome, because art can be extremely manipulative. So this is more of a side notion. So yes, we have all of this means to put the light on some specific thing that we want to show and hide everything else. So I think art has been accused of being manipulative with right. So on the other hand, people reading I won't stick with Anna Karenina. People reading Bulgakov, for example, will find extremely precise and very truthful descriptions of reality that they lived through.
Okay, sorry, maybe mentioning art was not a good idea here. Well, okay, so the critique of wide conception, this will be, or what Marian said at the beginning, other uses of truth are by second derivative metaphorical, or it can be just the case that we are using one and the same word for two different concepts and two different properties, and that we mostly from the context understand whether we are talking about truth in as semantical relation or truth as something genuine or real. So that would be generally the critique of the wide conception. Now, what can the proponent of the wide conception answer? Well, he would say truth is one concept with many applications, one superordinate concept with many subordinated concepts. And all these usages are legitimate. We have factual truth, logical truth, moral truth, ontological truth, existential truth, blah, blah. There are many kinds of truth. There is one concept, there is one superordinate concept of truth, and it has many subordinated concepts. So generally, this might be the answer of the proponent of the wide conception. Something close to this was the idea of Michael Lynch, truth as one and many. So that about true, the core of the concepts, there are some truisms. He believes that truth is functional property and that in different contexts, actually, it grabs different properties. So he has two kinds of truth, factual truth and moral truth. We can add to this list moral truth, I don't know, logical truth, existential truth, whatever. I don't think that Lynch himself would argue that there is such thing as existential truth, so true human existence, but his theory provides a framework for saying that. So, so this is the one way that proponent of the wide conception might go to accept Lynch's theory, truth as a functional concept, and they just extend it. For Lynch is, if I remember well, he has factual truth and moral truth. The proponent of the wide conception can just enlarge the list. He can put these ontological, existential, there are true knives, true cars, true human lives, and so on. Or one might go slightly different direction, but say one might say that X is true means that X performs its function well. And then, since sentence is supposed to convey information about the world, true sentence is one that does convey the information about the world. Knife is supposed to cut. True knife is one that cuts well. So what about existential truth? The true man would be one who performs his function well, whatever that is. So for saying that, we would need a very substantial theory about the human nature, detailed one, but this is something that is in principle possible. So this is maybe one possible way that the proponent of the wide conception of truth might go, to say that we have a core meaning, say that it performs its function well, or something like that, and then try to show that there are many applications, so therefore it is legitimate to talk about it. Generally speaking, one more comment about this material equivalence. About the material equivalence, in my opinion, the condition of material equivalence gives some ground for wide conception. Sometimes we do use word true in other contexts, in other meanings, but generally speaking, I would say that condition of material adequacy runs against the wide conception, because people although they can use the same word true, from the context they understand whether it is semantical relation. People don't understand that there's different meaning of true in true democracy and true friend and true statement and true sentence. So I think that this material adequacy would go against such trials. Okay, thank you. So that was about everything. Yeah, Philip.
Boran, perhaps on the last slide we have that. Yeah. If you can bring it up.
I can. Yeah. This one.
Yeah, I think that you can fit in here, James. I think that Marian, they mentioned him before, William James. I think that's more or less his idea of truth. If it performs well, if it functions well, if it is, if it brings some kind of benefit or something like that. So I think that you can perhaps fit him in here. I'm not 100% sure, but perhaps you can check it out. So you have something that perhaps you can, how can I say, hook up on someone. So
I don't know.
I think that James fits well in here. So
James, why James?
Because he talks about the truth is something that is useful for someone, that is good for someone, that he has this like pluralistic notion of truth that depends on what is useful for someone. It's perhaps even wider than the conception that you need here, in a sense that it is for a singular person, not for a true man, as you use it. But in a sense, if it functions well, then it's true.
I would also say it works well with James, at least James in sometimes. And I think it also has maybe the only famous person as a real opponent, Nietzsche. Right? Nietzsche says, oh, this belief may be true, but it does not function well. It's not survival enhancing. It's not good for you. So he would be a genuine opponent who has counterexamples to the true is functions well account. Something can be true, but it doesn't function well because it's not good. It doesn't make you strong. It doesn't make you survive and so on. He would be the only one who addressed this, whom I know of, addressed this and was loudly against it.
Yeah. So these praxis people, they tended toward anti-realistic conception of truth, in the sense that truth has to be true, something for us. Something for us. So I was talking to Veljak about this. He said, well, realism about truth is alethic realism. Well, it's not so much false as it is useless. It's futile. So who cares about something that happened billions of years ago at the other side of galaxy? So who cares about that? Truth has to be something for us, that we can do something with it. So that would be their general answer. And generally they were, well, at least Veljak, he has some kind of substantial view of truth. The truth is something, it is property. He rejects relativism, he rejects postmodernism, he rejects also some kind of minimalistic theories of truth. And he ends his essay with a notice, but we should not forget that truth is primarily the property of human existence. So that's his point. So he has some, he does not want relativism, postmodernism, blah, 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 eliminativism or something like that. He says that truth is something, that is a property in the world, but he has this view about it. Wow.
Yeah, just on this function view. I mean, it seems to me that we can use true in the wide way for anything where you can also use the word fake. And so, for example, supposing somebody is selling moon rock on eBay, and you know, and some, you know, and then some of what he's selling as moon rock is actually just fake moon rock. Then we it's very natural to say, you know, which of these is fake moon rock and which of these is true moon rock. But moon rock doesn't have any function. And you know, and I think for anything whatsoever, as you know, if you know, pretty much you can, if you can fake it, then there can be true examples of it simply by contrast with fake. So I think this wide use of true is actually much more promiscuous than the sort of function count suggests.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about it.
May I just ask, if we suppose that there is such a thing as a true man, then we have to suppose, but just that the opposition also exists, that there exists a false man.
Yeah, they were sometimes mentioning the opposing pair was true and non-true. It was not true and false. Istiniti I neistiniti, non-true.
Okay, non-true man.
It sounds better. It sounds less crazy than a false man.
Yeah, but I think fake man is okay. So, for example, you know, in some stories that there are castles which are, you know, where the which pretend to have far more defenders than they really have, and so they have fake men guarding the castle, and then those fake men can be contrasted with the few true men who are actually there guarding the castle. So you know, in suitable circumstances, you can make sense of a contrast between fake and true, but it's just to do with which of them really are men and which are not. That's
yeah. For the bills, say that somebody counterfeits the money. I don't know. It's not usually said it's true or false. It's
yes, you can. I mean, if there are some fake, if there are fake coins around, I mean, let's say fake pound coins, you can ask which of these coins is fake and which is a fake pound coin and which is a true pound coin. That's would be perfectly okay in the context where there are fakes to be contrasted with.
Good.
And with true gold, it's totally idiomatic, right? This is true gold.
True gold, yeah. And false.
Actually, I think maybe this
gold,
this might be worth looking at. It's so libertarian, this notion of truth. You can apply it to statements and propositions too, right? You can say this is a true proposition as opposed to a non-cognitive thing, right? Meaning true in the sense of real.
Yes.
Right? Only we hardly ever do this because, of course, it invites super confusion, right? If you start talking about true statement in the sense of a real statement, because mostly people will assume you're talking about a statement that's true, right? But this wide notion of true and false can be applied to statements too, can be applied to propositions, can even be applied to truths, right? You can imagine Martin Luther talking about the false truths of the Catholics, right? Like the Catholics sell you false gold, so they sell you false truths. That would I would not be surprised to read something like that in Martin Luther, right? So you could even talk about the false truths. And that suggests that there are really two different meanings here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not one notion, that these are really, really more genuinely two different notions, that you could do things like that.
Yeah, but for counterfeits of money, of bills, in some contexts, true or false would be accurate, but generally speaking, not. For instance, in German, it's echte, the real.
Yeah, but in German, for gold, wahres Gold sounds a bit sounds a bit strange to us, but it rings like something archaic. You could have said that a while ago, wahres Gold.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, Mia.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems to me that this, I would be, I guess, more prone to the narrow conception. It seems to me that there's this conception of truth, and that when we're saying a true man, a true whatever is like this metaphorical extension. So and it depends on like context, and like it has like pragmatic value, not more general. So I don't know, there's this context which Tim mentioned, that if you have false guards, or then there are like false men and true men. But then there's also this context where you generally, when you say that someone is a true man, you don't mean that they exist. But then if you have a person who has like hallucinations, then in that context, you are referring to like maybe a person that exists or doesn't. So I don't know, it seems to me that all these cases are kind of metaphorical extensions, and I would say that they are removed from the conception of truth that we mostly like think about in terms of propositions.
Yeah, that was generally my reaction. Plus, that there is a different concept in some contexts. In my view, this material adequacy, while talking about conceptual engineering and so on. So the linguistic community has already decided it. Narrow conception is the true conception of truth. Wide conception is just false. I would say that, yeah, that linguistic community has decided, and probably we as philosophers gave some contribution to that, maybe. Or this.
Yeah, I mean, and it connects like to the thing about the Carnaps and the explication, because I don't know, maybe the concept, like the idea of true gold, has like this very specific things what it means in like the I don't know enough about gold, but like I don't know, chemically or in terms of weight
to jewelry.
yeah,
or
and so on. So it has like a very specific
golden watch, wow,
Yeah.
or something. Well,
But
it has
but I mean,
like
it's but with something like, you know, true emerald. I mean, that's it. That's not. I don't think I've heard that phrase used, but I mean, it's perfectly obvious what it means. That it would be a true emerald would be contrasted with a fake emerald, and I think that's more than just a metaphor. I think, you know, it's literally true that something is a true emerald. But you know, I mean, this is not just. I mean, metaphors can turn into dead metaphors, and then you get literal truths. I think the difference is that the narrow conception has turned out to be something that is susceptible of fruitful and systematic study, and so, as it were, it rewards, you know, philosophical work, whereas the wide conception is so chaotic and undisciplined that it's not a useful as it were, the wide concept is not a useful instrument of philosophizing.
We cannot.
Functional approach might be a step, an attempt, right? This functional approach performs its function well. Might be an attempt to see that it's maybe more unified than one would have thought to begin with.
Yeah, but I don't think it actually corresponds to this what the wide usage is. I think the wide usage is much more broader than the functional approach. But it might indeed be have been intended as an to bring it into some kind of discipline. But I don't think it's going to work.
Tim, what would you say? These true emeralds or true jewels, is here truth used metaphorically, or we have different concepts?
No, I think it's a different use of the word, and this corresponds to something that Mariam was saying. So that you know, so if you take for example, true statement, that, strictly speaking, you know, is ambiguous because you know, there's a true statement in the sense of, you know, it's a statement that P is true if and only if P, but it could also be, supposing that we were I don't know, supposing you were giving therapy to someone who was kind of congenitally indecisive and overcautious, and you were trying to train them to make statements, and you know, and they kept trying to make statements, but then it all, you know, kind of, they lost their nerve halfway through, and you know, and so that they kept saying things that were not genuine statements, and then finally, you know, they made that, you know, they succeeded, and you say, at last, you know, you made a true statement, and you know, and that's not to do with whether, you know, the content is matches reality. It's just to do with the fact that what they did was genuinely make a statement, and you know, and so I think the fact that you can, you know, that something can be a true, I mean, but the truth, I mean, the true statement in that sense might well have been something false. I mean, the true statement might have been, you know, that Marrakesh is in India or something, and so the fact that you know, there's one sense in which they made a true statement and another sense in which they didn't make a true statement, it indicates that there's actually some kind of ambiguity going on here.
Justin.
Actually, I think Alexander had his hand up first, so I'm gonna pass it over to him, and then I'll go.
Alexander, yeah. Here you are on the list, yeah. Okay, Božić.
Yeah, well, nothing important, but I just remember that the expression for someone who is dogmatic and even fanatically dogmatic is that this person is a true believer. So is there any interesting sense of true in this example?
This is obviously wide sense, real,
Yeah.
real, true believer. It's in the sense of real, genuine believer.
Yeah.
When you were saying that we attribute to the word true an evaluative sense, like we are saying that it is at the same time something good, but we also say true psychopath. It is also possible to say.
Genuine or real, yeah, true psychopath, yeah.
There is actually an adequacy condition, right? It's very similar to the Tarski condition. X is true gold if and only if X is gold. It's an evil sibling of the Tarski condition, right? X is true F if and only if X is F.
Yeah, right. Justin.
Okay, so I don't accept this function account of the wide conception, but I am curious what you'd say about the idea I put forward earlier when we were talking about art, which is that true is a property of representations and more than just propositions represent. This might not account for all the variety of ways in which the word true is deployed widely, but it would certainly capture more than just sentences.
Yeah, that is interesting question. I am on that side. I would say that pictures, photographers, or documentary movies or something, that they are literally true because they are representations that represent correctly.
But I mean, on some views, the fundamental use of narrow use of true is for propositions, and
right.
And so it could be that what's going on is that it's not only sentences that express propositions, that propositions can be expressed in other ways as well, and that some. For example, some non-verbal belief might somehow, in its way, have a proposition as its content. So I think the further question is whether it actually goes beyond things that have propositional content.
Well, I appreciate the point, but I do think that.
Yeah, sorry, Justin. Yeah.
So I do think that in the argument against this wide conception, there's been this sense that other things that besides mere words can't be the kind of thing that is true. So the point that that you made, which is absolutely true, that other things besides sentences have propositional content, is something that I totally want to take on board here, but also suggested that if the narrow conception just is only propositions have can be true or false, then lots of different kinds of things can be true or false. A lot of this language that we're talking about art and so on, all those things can be true or false because they do express it. Now, what they express is a matter of ambiguity. Like I think, like this notion that a photograph is somehow the proposition of a photograph is some literal transcription of what it depicts is very naive picture of art, right? Sometimes that's what it is, but sometimes it's not. So there could be a lot of ambiguity about what propositions are being expressed by things besides sentences, and there's a lot of mushy-headedness there and messiness there. But I don't think we should let that deter us from just acknowledging, lots of different kinds of things can be true, so long as there's some propositional content to them.
Is there propositional content? Say we have some picture, we might argue that we do not need propositional content in order to have a literal truth, that picture is by itself represents truly or not truly represents its object. Or we can say that there is propositional content and that we have to translate pictures, graphs, diagrams, whatever, into set of propositions, and then these sets of propositions can be true.
Yeah, but aren't you thinking of propositions as verbalized? Because if a proposition is just, I mean, if you have a coarse-grained conception of propositions as something like sets of possible worlds, then you can have a direct relation between a picture and a proposition without any need to translate the picture into linguistic terms. I mean, if supposing it's a portrait of a given person, and we can distinguish between the, as it were, the states of affairs in which it represents the person correctly, and the ones in which it and how the person would have to be for it to represent them incorrectly, then that will give us some kind of truth condition for the painting, which isn't mediated by linguistic representations.
Yeah, right. I also wonder whether caricature can be true or false. I would think that it can be true in some sense if somebody has big nose or something, and yeah. Oh, okay, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, this is just an analogical problem from aesthetics, and I'm not sure whether it can help you, probably not, but it's, from my perspective, it's very interesting. So you are concerned with the question of truth and whether true democracy have any sense or have any meaning. In aesthetics, there is a similar problem with the notion of beauty. What does it mean to say that someone has a beautiful soul, or that, let's say, philosophical theory is beautiful, or anything that doesn't have like visual context? So my question for you is, with respect to the aesthetics, many people will say it's a metaphorical use, but we recognize it, so it's okay to apply the notion of beauty to all these things, although they do not necessarily have visual kind of component. So I was just wondering, given what you are saying now, what are we supposed to do with this kind of linguistic consensus, which kind of recognizes, the meaning of beautiful soul, just like they recognize the meaning of the true democracy or the true love or the true friendship or something like that?
Say about it, this is a good thing. The beautiful lijep in Croatian is lijep, beautiful or nice, has ethical meaning as well.
Well,
So,
the true can also have ethical meaning, for at least for some people, in some sense.
no, this is explicitly about beautiful, that somebody was, you can hear still that in Bosnia, lijep čovjek, beautiful man, can be used in ethical, exclusively in ethical terms.
Exactly, and that's my question, what are we supposed to do?
Beautiful action. It was nice thing to do. Well, something.
Yeah, but I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me that your problem with true democracy is very similar to my problem of beautiful soul or beautiful man or something.
Yeah, it seems to me that it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems to me that it is. And the question is whether they do these two senses, whether they have something in common. Question is whether they have something in common, some literal feature that, because metaphorical, if something is metaphorical usage of something else, then they must have something in common. Yeah, Emma.
It seems to me that, for me, I think narrow conception makes more sense, because it seems to me that there is a linguistic confusion, because if you look at the word true as it's used for prepositions, we can translate true from English into Croatian, other language, and I think it will have a relatively uniform use. We will decide. Of course, it depends on your epistemological view, but if you have some conception of truth, you can apply it to different languages, and they will have their own word for true. But the difference is, if you say true gold, we don't say that in Croatian. We don't say istinito zlato,
No.
Which is why I think it's in some cases either metaphorical, as you said, or sometimes it's just another concept that was maybe previously in the past somehow related to the concept of true. But I think the difference in translation signifies that since we don't use it in Croatian and they don't use it, I don't know, in Spanish, that I think means that it's not exactly the same concept. So we cannot really use the word true in each concept for every language, which means that it's just a matter of language use, and we are talking essentially about different concepts.
What's the translation of the Croatian you said?
True man.
No, you said when we in Croatian true gold, that wouldn't, you couldn't say that?
Yeah,
It's
you
not
couldn't
true.
say that.
Translation.
It's like
You
real gold.
Yeah,
Real.
real, or we say pravo, zlato, which
Oh.
means real, and in some cases we use the word pravo. Sometimes we use the word true to mean right, so the right one, the
Right
right
gold.
something.
You could
But
say
I don't
right
think
gold.
no, I don't think it would work for gold, but yeah, I mean, we would say real gold, as Mia said, but we wouldn't say true gold.
And for the friend?
Yeah, we can use this istinski with different
Yes.
istinski prijatelj.
That would work for the friend too.
Yes, for friend it would work perfectly. Istinski, democracy, man, friend, and so with this ending ski, but then the meaning is genuine or real.
Yeah, but
It's
yeah.
not about semantical relationship of representation and its content. Well,
Yes, but I think if you would say true friend, you would probably translate it as pravi prijatelj, which means a real
Right.
friend, I guess. So since we're losing the true component, we don't have it in Croatian. I just think this is a matter of linguistic confusion in many of these cases. I don't think it relates to truth. I think it's somehow metaphorically related, but it doesn't apply to a full extent.
Along these lines, maybe to take a somewhat different tack, it might be interesting to look at truth when the word isn't actually used. Right? So Charles Kahn, for example, you know the book by Kahn about the meaning of the word is in Greek? It's a very good book. He says that the oldest uses of truth talk in Greek are always just is. Right, so somebody says something, and in Greek you say "p" and I say "it is." That means it's true, but I'm not using a word "true," right? And in Homer and so on, the word aletheia doesn't show up on hardly ever.
Yeah.
They say "it is as he says." That's as it were the original source of truth talk. And later Greek gets a special word for that, right? Aletheia, right? But originally it's just "it is as he says," or "so it is." And I think in German it's like that too, that the really the original truth talk in the narrow sense is without the word true, right? It's just "it is as you say," right? So
Yeah.
maybe going this route maybe might help making looking at along the lines what she just said and what Tim and I also said, saying, oh, there's a genuine difference between the narrow notion and the wider notion, because the narrow notion of truth really comes, or historically at least, from uses just of the copula, just of the is, right?
Mhm.
It is as you say, so it is, and so on. There's a very close connection there. And it might be interesting to look whether there's also, what is going on with the notion of truth when it means real or genuine. Is there also something like that? Can one make a difference here? Because there's this special connection with the narrow notion of truth to the is, right? To being and so on. Might give you a little bit of a different, that might give you a little bit of a different perspective looking at cases where the word true is not actually used.
Yeah, we have that tako je. Translation will be "it is so," is literal. It is that's literal translation. It means that you agree with what was said, and you can use that instead of true. I don't know. This is a good car. Yes, it is.
Is this in Croatian? Is this like in German and in English and in Greek? Is this a different word from the word true?
Yes,
These are totally different also.
it is so. Tako je.
Is so. Has no, you cannot use this as an adjective as the word true. These are two different uses.
Adjective, you say that things are as he said.
As he says, right? And there's no Croatian equivalent to the Croatian word true when you in Croatian say it is as he says.
No.
Okay, so it looks like at least Indo-European languages are similar in this respect, that they all have this construction where you can express truth without actually using the word true, right?
Yes.
But that I think only works for I'm not sure, maybe that only works for the narrow notion of truth.
Yeah, you say that somebody is, this is a good car. Yes, it is. Are you talking about the car, or you're talking about the statement that it is a good car?
No.
Well, if I may just jump in. Well,
Yeah.
sometimes in Croatian you would say, for some, you watch a movie and then you'll say, to je to, this is it.
That's it. Yeah.
Like
So
it gave you something that is,
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
So that conveyed you something or whatever. But in a way, you just say, to je to, this is it. Like you say in English. So you don't need to use.
That's right. It's a modern thing to say last couple of years.
But can you also what you just said? Can you also use this in the context when you intend to say this is real?
Yes.
That would be ambiguous between this is true, this is real. Would mean both.
Depending on context.
Yeah, it really depends on context, what you're discussing about, and someone said, example, you go to a restaurant, you order something, you order, I don't know, black risotto, and then you get this black risotto, say, okay, like
that's
this
the real thing.
This is the real thing.
The real thing. Yeah. That would be the good translation. That is the real thing in this context. Yeah.
Yeah, I apologize if this was mentioned already, but maybe I missed it. What if a work of art has a disclaimer based on true events? So can we then apply the narrow sense of truth, the narrow conception?
It is in the narrow conception, I would say, the true events. You are what is true here is not these events. Okay, they happen, they are real, but since in making films, you can make film according to invented events or according to the real events. In that case, you would say true events, istiniti događaji. The movie is made according to the true events. Yes, and in this expression, it is explicitly used word true events, in the sense, that's the sense that Tim was contrasting with fake. It's not invented. It's not matter of imagination. Yeah. Istiniti događaj. So here, I would say that it is used in the narrow sense, because yeah, these things really happened. I would say that it is a narrow conception.
Isn't this still wide? This is like true gold, right?
No.
True events, not fake events, true events, like true gold, not
Yeah.
fake.
You have 10 screen plans for a film, and 8 are fictures, 2 are true, according to true events. So the truth is not property of events themselves, but of their description, I would say so. True events. Well, you can say that something happened big, important, oh, it was a true event, then that would be a different meaning. Or it was a really big thing,
Yeah.
true event. That would be in a wide sense. But maybe in this context that film was made according to the true events, it is, I would say that it is in the narrow.
I would say it's a narrower sense of the wide sense. It's like with what he said before, right? A true man in the sense of a strong man, a virile man. And in the other context where we have fictions and he has hallucinations and you say that's a true man, it just means it's really a man, right? But that's still the sense of true gold and a true money and so on. It's not the propositional sense. It just says the thing is really the thing it seems to be.
Yeah.
It's a narrower sense of the wide sense.
Something like that. Yeah. Philip.
Yeah, just the question about the wide conception. So actually, it's an area of questions. So do you think it's like there is just one wide conception or there are several wide conceptions? Because
here I took as one.
Yeah, the last slide looks like one, and the last slide it really resembles the narrow conception because it focuses on one thing. It just what it does, it just exchanges the idea of being true as true means that it is P with the function, the idea of functioning, like there is something that functions well and that's it works, it's useful. So it's in a sense, it's a really pragmatic notion, as you see, just resembles so much James that's why I brought him up before. But so this is one way to go with the wide conceptions, but there are perhaps others also. And I don't think that Lino would agree at all, Lino Veljak would agree at all with this conception of the wide conception. If you want to use it for the true man, then I don't think that one would say that the true man functions well. It sounds a bit strange. There's something more that you want to say with the true man. I'm not sure, but at least it seems so.
In English sounds well, in Italian sounds well, in Croatian, well, you need the different ending, this istinski čovjek, istinit čovjek.
So do you think there are more different wide conceptions? Because it seems like this wide conception is a mess that needs to be somehow rearranged, and we need some kind of how can I say, certification or classification of it. So perhaps there are different ways to go through it, not just one.
I don't know whether it's a mess. Well, probably it is a mess, certainly to some degree. But well, for instance, this what scholastics had: semantical truth, ontological truth. Ontological truth is correspondence between thing and its concept. It meaning real or genuine, real, true man, true democracy. That's in the sense here, in the sense of ontological. So it is relatively well defined, this ontological truth. So in this sense, you can talk about true cars or true knives, that they are good for their purpose. Now, my question that I was interested in, for instance, here, do we have one concept of truth that has two different applications, or we have two different concepts? Since in both cases, it is something is corresponding to something, one might say that this is one and the same concept, that truth is truth in both cases. Therefore, it would be legitimate to say true man, true car, true airplane, whatever, true forest. Or they stand for different concepts. But it seems that because both concepts have correspondence, that's the essential thing, that one might say that it is actually one concept. I think Emma was.
Well, I think for ontological truths that they are actually, at least in some cases, thinking about reference. Because if you say a true man, this is a true man, and you point to a specific person, I think they are actually saying this person belongs to the concept of man. So that's why I think for ontological truth, it's actually reference. So you're saying either that something or someone belongs to a certain concept, or that they are a certain kind of thing.
Yeah, that it should be subsumed under that concept, and that it is good. That would also mean that good knife or good car that corresponds well to its concept. If you have some knife that is shaky, it's not sharp, you can't do, then it would be untrue. It would be knife, but it would be untrue knife or false. It would not be true. True knife is one that does not shake and one that cuts. Well, so it is semantical relationship that goes under the concept, belongs to the concept. Plus, there is matter of evaluation. So true car, first, it is car. Second, it is good car. That would be the answer. Mattia. Yeah. Excuse me, it was Ludlow about what? About meanings, negotiation. What? Yeah. Well, Tim is not here anymore. He said we have good developed theories about narrow truth from Tarski and so on and other people. We don't have any theories about wide truth. But actually, maybe the answer to his comment might be that, say, true car. oh, we know a lot about cars, how to make a car, how to calculate. There's aerodynamics, there is about engines and so on. Or theory about gold. Oh, we have a theory. There is a chemistry tells us a lot about gold and blah, 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 blah. So the theory that the wider truth about X is actually everything that we know about X. So that might be answer to your comment about Ludlow's view and to Tim Williamson's reaction. Yeah, Andrei.
Yes, I've been
Picture
listening to the.
if you can, but it doesn't matter. Well,
Yeah, picture. Just a second. Yeah, I was listening to this very interesting discussion, and I was wondering, would you be prepared to say that there is a single notion of truth, only that it is a family resemblance concept, and in what cases you would prefer the two notions theory, and in which cases you would prefer the family resemblance view?
Generally speaking, I'm not well disposed toward this wide conception of truth, but I think that the proponent of this wide theory of truth, yes, that would fit the wide conception. Somebody come and say that we have a family resemblance. For instance, here, semantical truth, ontological truth, there is a sort of correspondence. What about true man? Well, there is a correspondence between the way that, I don't know, Joe is actually living and the way in which we think that one human being should live. So what is common here is correspondence, but for family resemblance, you need less. Maybe there, that would be a nice model for the proponent of the wide conception, to say that there is a family resemblance. I think
I would object. Remember Wittgenstein's example, right? It's different. He gives you all these kinds of games, and each one has some similarity with its neighbor, right? And that has some similarity with its neighbor, and in the end, they have nothing in common. Whereas here we have a different situation. He wants to say that the defendant of wide truth wants to say, oh, there's this wide notion of correspondence, let's say, right? And it can be taken this way, that way, that way, that way. You don't, it's different. It's not like Wittgensteinian family resemblance, right?
No, this is okay. This is okay. What you said, that will be a different reaction, different option. Here, there would be essence. If there is correspondence in all and only instances of true correspondence, then it's not family resemblance, it's the essence. But take, for instance, here, we have factual truth, we have logical truth, they're completely different. What they have in common, well, that it's justified to make inferences from them, it's a good thing to accept. They're very different, they're completely different. Moral truth is, I don't know,
right.
Let's say it is something that we would agree upon in the ideal conditions or something like that. So they're all very different kinds of truths, but all of them are truths. So maybe for this list, it would fit better the family resemblance view.
On the other hand, right, it seems to me Aristotle did a little bit more than that, right? Because in a way, you could do this with anything, right? Take any word, even if it's obviously completely ambiguous. You could say there's one notion, and then it has different ways in which it can show up or something, right? Even with words that are just sillily ambiguous, right? There would be no restraint for this kind of move, right? Aristotle said, no, we have this focal thing. The thing with the focal notion, right, is that you have a central notion, let's say, of health, right? Then the others are not merely ambiguous because you can explain the others in terms of the focal one, right? You say healthy food is food that contributes to a healthy person and so on, right? So analogously, if on this more restrained notion of wide concept, you should be able to explain the wider notion. You should be able to identify the focal notion and then explain the wider uses in relation to this focal use, right? Not just, and that would be a criterion. Otherwise, it's too easy. You could say this about anything.
Yeah.
You need some restraint, right? And Aristotle has a restraint. Explain the wider uses in terms of.
That's good. Yeah. Healthy meal. It's healthy to walk after the dinner or something.
Yeah, and healthy food is good contributes to the health of the animal and so on and so on. Right?
Yeah, that might be the good approach to this.
But then if the advocate of the wide notion wants to follow this more restrained Aristotelian path, then he has to identify the focal. Right? And
Probably
what is the focal point and what are the wider ones?
Probably the factual truth. Yeah. Andrei, is that what you had in mind, what you wanted, or you had something else in mind when you mentioned Wittgenstein?
Well, yes. I mean, it's a separate problem how to define family resemblance concepts, and I think several attempts are already out there. I mean, some authors try to quite formally define when a concept is a family resemblance concept. So I guess it need not be the case that if you say that something is a family resemblance concept, that anything whatsoever can fall under it. I mean, you can put some reasonable restraints and try to define when a concept is to be considered as a unique but family resemblance concept. But that's really a separate issue. I mean, if you, which need not concern us here when we are discussing the notion of truth, that's a more general issue about family resemblance concepts in general. I mean, and if you, when you're looking at the cases of application of the word true, I mean, then I think that Boran was really trying to find an intersection between the narrow use and the wider use in the idea of correspondence or congruence. But if you take the turn towards family resemblance concepts, then you need not find anything which they have in common. And you can also forego the idea of a focal meaning. Because if you have a focal meaning, then all the other derived meanings have to resemble that very designated meaning, the meaning which is designated as focal, as being focal. And you need not even have that. I mean, some uses of the word true can have in common that you want to positively appraise something, and while others can have the idea of correspondence in common, and there need not be any focal meaning whatsoever. I mean,
but that's very good, right? Because you cannot just sort of throw around this wide notion, right? And say it's family resemblance or it's focal. There are actually different criteria. If you say it's family resemblance, you're saying something different than the advocate of the wide notion. You're saying, if you say it's family resemblance, it's really something different from focal thing, right? That should
yes,
be
yeah.
Right?
There should be two different conceptions. Yeah.
Otherwise, it becomes too cheap to just advocate, right? If you don't have any criteria, it's too cheap, right? Family resemblance, you have some criteria, or at least examples and so on. Focal, you have criteria, or one could also try something like paradigms, right? The paradigm approach to concepts. Maybe it has this paradigm structure, right? Like for birds, there are paradigm birds, and penguins are much further away from something, right?
Yeah.
And maybe Jesus is the paradigm of truth and everything else is sort of similar or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But that, it seems to me, that would be helpful, right? Because it seems to me it's important for the advocate of the wide conception, if he wants to be taken seriously, to have some restraints on this approach. Otherwise, it's just trivial. You can do it with anything.
Yeah, some restraints would have to be in play. Yes. Yeah.
Well, it's trivial restraint that we are using one and the same word.
Yeah, that seems to me that's too trivial, right? Because you could do this then with words that are obviously ludicrously ambiguous. That have nothing to do with each other. Right?
Yeah.
Like bank in English, right? You could say, oh, there's the notion of bank, and sometimes it's manifests itself in the riverbank, and sometimes it manifests itself in the money bank, and sometimes somewhere else, right?
Bank has nothing to do one with another, yeah.
It's ridiculous, right? And so you don't want the advocate of the wide notion doesn't want to be ridiculous, just to use this thesis to unify two words that are just ambiguous, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's good.
some restraint would be important, right?
Yeah.
And just that the same word is used is not enough, right?
Yeah. It will be interesting to try to find out what you said, Marian, about the Aristotelian view that this relation of contribution, that food that contributes to health or work that contributes to health, we have explanation of how it contributes. But here we have factual truth, logical truth, existential, ontological.
Becomes difficult, right? Yeah.
How do they say ontological truth that something, well, I don't know, this lighter is good lighter, it corresponds to this concept, how that contributes to the truth of sentences? Or
I think it helps to see that for the narrow notion, right? It's actually the narrow notion is clearly focal, right? There we can apply truth to sentences, to beliefs, to statements, to propositions. And if you do that, then you will normally say truth applied to propositions is the basic notion. And a true sentence is true because it expresses a true proposition. And a belief is true because it has a true proposition as content, right? So the standard view is the focal notion of truth in the narrow notion. The focal notion is on propositions. And for belief and sentences and statements, it gets explained in terms of propositions. Okay, so there you have a very clear Aristotelian structure. Whether you can extend that to moral truth and ontological truth and existential truth, that seems rather dubious.
Yeah, that seems dubious. Well, Philip's example, this is the true food.
Yeah.
You want to say that it's good. How that contributes to, maybe through this correspondence relationship, that it corresponds well to its ideal.
That's the attempt, right? That's the attempt to find some unity in there. With this or your attempt with the function.
Or
These might be two different attempts, right? Two different approaches: correspondence approach and function approach.
Yeah. And that would be the explanation of how it contributes.
How it's unified.
It's not causal contribution, but there is some analogy. It has something to do with the focal meaning. Yeah, right.
Boran, everybody, I have to go.
Yeah, well,
do you send out an email for next time?
Here. Thank you all for participating and listening, discussing.
Will you send out an email for next time?
I will.
Okay, good.
I will put you on the list.
Yeah, please do so.
There are some people who are already complaining there is too much talks, but you also, Marian, if you have something that you would like to present, to discuss with us, just say. We would be.
I'll tell you.
To use this Zoom platform to do the meetings.
Okay, great.
Generally, it should be about meta-philosophy, but anything goes under that.
No, I would like to do something, but doesn't have to be right away.
Yeah.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye.
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 Okay, bye. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.